Baltimore Ravens had an extremely busy Tuesday, signing CJ Gardner-Johnson and trading away Odafe Oweh. And they might have just tipped their hand that more moves could be coming. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day. And thank you out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content, and we had plenty of that for you yesterday as the Ravens made multiple moves. We had multiple instant reaction streams, the one about signing CJ Gardner-Johnson, trading away Odafe Oweh. We had our morning show, and there's just so much content and coverage coming to you every single day here on Locked On Ravens from that Ravens perspective. Jam-packed show today. The Ravens, they look to tip their hand on even more moves after their busy day based off of what they did. Also, Eric DeCosta clearly admitted a mistake after trading away Odafe Oweh, and we'll get into a little bit about who CJ Gardner-Johnson is, as well as Alohi Gilman, who the Ravens acquired in that Oweh trade. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Here to dive into all the madness that happened in Baltimore yesterday is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion, Qadry Ismail of Missile Training and MissileTraining.com, as well as the Locked On Ravens squad show. And Q, man, I mean, look, I think we were both saying, whether it be on the squad show or you and I talking, that something had to give with this Ravens team being 1-4 with the performances we've seen. I know coaching changes were discussed, maybe other personnel moves, but certainly we figured out how the Ravens felt about this roster, because it looks a lot different than it did 24 hours ago right now.
Yeah, it does. I think this is where a 1-4 team that has the Rams coming up, then the bye week, and then you go through the gauntlet of your AFC North opponents. Like, the elephant in the room is you got to get better, period, in the discussion. Into a roll, coaches will get fired, GMs will get replaced if you sit back and do nothing. This was supposed to be the win at all costs, win now proposition. That right now is where we're at in DEFCON 4. Desperation and desperate times calls for you giving away a guy who simply wasn't the productive specimen that we thought he was going to be. And you're getting some safety help that you desperately need, because you got a whole bunch of young dudes that really, the way you play defense, which is a heck of a lot of big nickel, if you don't have the guys to help you solidify that mainstay of your defense, season is over. It's done. It's over. So you had to make a decision. They made the decision. They got it done. We'll see how it works out. I know Freddie Jackson, a.k.a. Eddie Jackson, from last year, like, okay, he came in and he went. And it was like, what in the world? So just because you get a guy, I'm not going to be, oh, this is the greatest, let's grade it out as an A. We don't know until he comes in and see what he has in store. That's what I'm looking at when I look at this opportunity for these guys to come in and play.
Here's my thing about what this says, because obviously when you make moves like this, and when you kind of go over this turnover, again, it was only bringing in one guy, or bringing in, I guess, two guys, and then moving off of one. This, to me, I think the Ravens have tipped their hand that, hey, this is not the roster we want to rock with here. We've seen enough. We're going to make moves. And I think more moves are on the horizon. I think the Ravens have tipped their hand here, but I don't think there's a clear path right now. I think there are two clear paths, not one clear path. What I mean by that is I think the Ravens can go in two different directions here, depending on maybe how this week goes against the Rams or how they're feeling about their roster. They can either use, because again, with the Oweh trade, the full trade itself was the Ravens got Alohi Gilman and a 5th-round pick for Oweh and a 7th-round pick. They also cleared about $7-8 million in cap space with the move as well. So one path is to use that cap space, use some of your draft capital to go out there and swing for a big fish, swing for a couple of big guys. You can make a couple trades, improve your roster, and try to go forth this year. Or this could be the beginning of what could be a fire sale for the Ravens. We know there are a lot of guys who are up for extensions. Oweh was one of them. They clearly did not want to pay him, which we'll talk a little bit more in the second part of the show about. But they could also, the path could be, this is the beginning of a retooling year, get draft capital, and make sure that you have enough in your locker room to maybe go and go about it next year. This was a lost year, which in itself is a pretty big failure. But I think those are the two paths that you are looking at, Q. Do you see it that way, or do you think there are more paths that the Ravens could take after a move like this and maybe stand pat and rely on internal development? Is that something you see?
Well, I think the defensive line needs to be addressed. I mean, that's the hugest elephant in the room. And you got to get guys on this ball club that can shore it up. If you look at, I mean, Travis Jones, as much as we want to laud him and praise him, all you got to do is just double team him. And then pretty much if you're a good offensive line, everybody else get the duo block and boom, linebackers aren't going to do anything. Go ahead and, plug up whoever is that linebacker. Now you got a back that is going, 5-6 yards down the football field before he even gets touched. Safety, again, he's not aggressive enough to play the run effectively. And so with that, you need a D lineman that can be disruptive. You go ahead and you have drop back passes. Well, we saw CJ Stroud, great quarterback, not an all-timer, but certainly his start to his young career has been a really strong one. But we just saw him march down the football field, literally march down the field. And there was nothing that they could do to stop him. I think that is the glaring thing when you look at this Ravens defense, their ineffectiveness of getting pressure up the middle and stopping the run. Like, you can't do that. AFC North, forget about it. The chance of even remotely thinking about a wild card berth, forget about it. Then you're talking about, okay, what's next? Somebody's going to be cleaning house. And it might just be Steve Rashod. If it's Eric DeCosta, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But if it is Steve Rashod, we know there's going to be some cleaning of the house. And that cleaning means that both EDC and John Harbaugh going to be on the chopping block. So this is going to be where, for Eric, hey, bro, listen, I gave John everything I could. I cleared out some cap space to go ahead and make some strong decisions. Wherever those strong decision guys are, we need to go ahead and see it, make it, and then I gave it to him. Well, John, is up to him and his staff. He put the staff together. Now let's go out there and if it works, great. Then we'll keep him. If not, Steve, I think we need to find somebody else.
If I'm John Harbaugh, I am running to Eric DeCosta's office and I am banging down that door saying, Eric, please trade the picks, because we need to win now. If he doesn't trade these picks and holds on to them and the Ravens have a disappointing exit, I think we all know the writing on the wall for John Harbaugh, which is likely he's not the coach of this team next season, like you were alluding to. So if I'm John Harbaugh, I am trying to get Eric DeCosta to trade away a first-round pick, trade away a second-round pick, because those picks don't matter to Harbaugh if he's not on the team next season. So that's the path that I think he wants the Ravens to take, as he should. But I'm going to leave it up to you, Q. I'm going to put you right in the middle. You got a fork in the road. This season for the Ravens, based off everything you've seen, based off the moves that were made with Gardner-Johnson and Oweh and everything, if you have three choices, if you're the Ravens, based off your confidence level, you can either pick the path that is they make a splash for a big guy, trade away that draft capital, and try to go for it and revive this season. There's another path where the Ravens hold on to their draft capital. They try to get more capital, and they have a fire sale. They punt this season. Or they try to rely on the roster they already have, rely on youth, and try to win that way. Out of those three paths, which path are you taking right now?
So I will say, if you're doing any level of punting and keeping draft capital, then what are you doing with Lamar Jackson as far as his contract? If I'm Lamar Jackson, then I'm like, oh, okay, so y'all going to screw up my year that y'all gave me allegedly the best roster that I've had ever. Okay, well, then I'm going to shut it down, and, man, that hamstring just ain't getting better. So we don't want that. We want them to use it all. Use everything you got to get some dude to come up in this mug and be like, yo, I'm your game changer. Let's go. And if it's multiple dudes, clearly right now they're starting with multiple dudes as far as safety is concerned. But yet at the same time, again, D-line, and let's go ahead and get rid of the O-lineman. Get in somebody else from an O-line aspect of things. Like, come on. We don't have time to waste. This is do or die time. This is it. This is what you're looking at. And so I think that the bigger picture is like what is now looking like. And if you got the capital from a draft / you also got cap space, and you're also talking about, hey, Lamar, we want you to give us some love as far as the cap friendliness, then I think you need to be as aggressive as you humanly possibly can to not punt this season.
I 100% agree. The move is not to punt. The move is to go for it. Go for it now. You have Lamar Jackson. You're 1-5 if at the end of this week, potentially. Yeah, that's a really bad spot to be in if you lose to the Rams. I get it. But there should be no sense of fire sale on this team right now. The issue is you've put yourself in a very deep hole. But the problem is with these guys you're trading for, and we'll talk about this in the second part of the show, what's the value you can actually get for some of these guys? And that stuff we'll talk about coming up, because Eric DeCosta, with his trade of Odafe Oweh, he admitted a couple of mistakes here. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And so the Ravens, they need a big week 6 win over the Rams. They're 1-4. If they fall to 1-5, they're in a heap of trouble. And over on FanDuel, the Rams are currently 7.5-point road favorites heading into Baltimore. So maybe you like the Ravens being the home underdog, or maybe you like the Rams as the road favorite. Either way, you need to get over to FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail. Still talking Ravens football with you here. The Ravens trading away Odafe Oweh. They bring in Gardner-Johnson. We'll talk more about the Ravens additions and CJGJ, as well as Alohi Gilman in the final part of the show and what they bring to the team. But I want to dive into Odafe Oweh departing the Ravens in this segment, where you have a guy that was picked 31st in the NFL draft back in 2021. He had no sacks in his final collegiate season coming out of college. They took a swing on the upside. That's a big risk in the first part of the draft. Day one, taking that swing, it's a big risk. We saw the potential that Oweh brought to the table in his second ever game. Kansas City forces that fumble on Clyde Edwards-Helaire to essentially win the Ravens that game. And we really never saw anything like that again. It was kind of like his peak was in his second career game. He had a couple of games last season. The Vegas game, he had 2.5 sacks. The Pittsburgh game, he had 2.5 sacks, but the inconsistency plagued Oweh. And so you trade him in the 7th rounder for Alohi Gilman, who is not a bad safety, but is also not like the top of the world safety. He's kind of like a middling-ish safety who can provide you something. But Alohi Gilman and a 5th is a pretty minimal return for a guy with the potential that Oweh has. But the problem is he's always been potential. And outside of last season, but that 10.5 sack year, this year, Q on the field, he's been practically invisible, just 10 tackles in 5 games, no sacks. You're really looking at a guy that overall, unfortunately, was a pretty disappointing Ravens tenure for him. And Eric DeCosta, and moving on from him, essentially admitted, hey, this did not work. And, probably was a mistake to swing on that upside in the first place because it didn't work out the way they needed it to.
If you are looking at a rush in, it is about the completeness in this system. The system demands for you to rush the quarterback, play the run, tackle for losses. They go away from you, you're hawking them down. If they come to you, you're blowing it up. You're looking for Terrell Suggs. What you got was guy that his snaps were greatly reduced. Our friends over at the Banner were saying how there was only 33 snaps of potential well over 100 and close to 150. So if that is the case, then you're looking at a guy that they're recognizing ain't it. He's not the Terrell Suggs of this newer generation. And because of that, you're in a position where you're 1-4. And then you can't be 1-5. You know you need to get some level of pressure. Again, looking at the tape, like there were times where CJ Stroud, for example, when they were running in the goal line towards the tunnel and literally the play comes his way, but he, for whatever reason, decides to jump inside. He gets pinned inside. He then tries to make a move to go outside, but he didn't look fast. He says he put on all that muscle, but see, that's the problem. You put on muscle and you can't move with said muscle. What is the point of having extra mass if you can't move with it? Couldn't move with it. Because of that, he wound up allowing CJ Stroud to out-leverage him. Now you have a tight end going down the field. Now you got a safety who out of position. He has to figure out whether I go to CJ or whether I stick with the tight end. They go up CJ, boom, gets the tight end wide open, going on down the field. Now they get it deep into the red zone and a first down. Come on, Odafe. You go ahead, you blow that up. Now we're talking. That's the player that we're looking at when it comes to Odafe Oweh and what that sums up pretty much everything. It's like, oh, he's almost there. He's not. Oweh, oh well. Couldn't do it. And that's it.
Yeah, certainly a disappointing end to his tenure. And now the Ravens are essentially left with Kyle Van Noy, Mike Green, Tavius Robinson, and David Ajabo in that edge room. Trenton Simpson can play on the outside. Maybe he starts to see a lot more snaps there. Spencer Schultz, you mentioned the snap. Spencer Schultz, he outlined the last 3 weeks, Oweh snaps compared to some of the other players on the roster. In week 3, Oweh had 28 snaps. Mike Green had 52 and Tavius Robinson had 54. In week 4, Odafe Oweh had 33, Mike Green 45, Tavius Robinson 57. In week 5, Oweh had just 26 snaps, while Mike Green had 42 and Tavius Robinson had 50. And that week, Kyle Van Noy also had 19 in his return to the field. So clearly he was falling out of favor in Baltimore. Jez Rebeck reported that Oweh and the Ravens did have contract extension talks during the offseason, but they didn't really go very far. And it felt like a player that, honestly, even Q, we talked about this before all this happened, before the season. It felt like a very long shot Oweh was going to return either which way. If he had a great season, he probably would have priced himself out of Baltimore. And if he had a bad season like he's having right now, the Ravens wouldn't want to bring him back. I just think that them trading him sends a pretty clear message about how dissatisfied they were with him and how they just wanted to open up something else. Because on the field this year, Q, I hate to say it, but he did look invisible. And when he was involved in plays, like you mentioned with CJ Stroud and all those other types of plays, he was on the bad end of plays. Didn't really feel like he was making an impact. And the Ravens must have just felt like, hey, yeah, okay, didn't work out the way we wanted to. Probably a mistake in drafting him here based off the value. We just need to open up something else for somebody else, whether it's internally or externally.
Now you look at Mike Green. Now you look at Tavius Robinson. Tavius Robinson has been playing. I think sometimes he's played sporadic as well. I think that there have been some incomplete plays that Tavius would have loved to have played better and had back. But at least we're seeing him do something and the consistency of his play. So it is a situation where, yeah, you're moving on from Odafe Oweh, oh well, and now you have guys that I think can grow, and you're not going to be looking at them costing you a whole heck of a lot. So from that aspect of things, as everybody loves to be all value, great. But my thing is, can you play? And so this gives you an opportunity to recognize, look, we're serious about this. So we get rid of a guy that we didn't think was serious enough to do his job. Now let's go out there and let's really play and get some things going for this ball club to start winning. Because right now the defense looks atrocious. Period. End of discussion. This is nowhere near what you should expect from a Ravens defense.
Yeah, and again, it's really bad to the point where, we saw in 2019, right? I think this is the beginning of what happened in 2019, and hopefully it is, where the Ravens made those moves to help increase the winning potential of that team. Once they started 2-2 and gave up 500 total yards in each of those weeks, it was okay. You're not working, Tim Williams. You're gone. Josh Bynes and LJ Fort, you're going to come in here and you're going to play a significant role for us because we need somebody to come in here and do something. Marcus Peters comes in and gives them a spark in the secondary a couple weeks later. Those are the types of moves the Ravens have to make, and you have clear needs. You talk defensive line, pass rusher, offensive line. Offensive line's hard to trade for during the season because everybody needs offensive linemen and nobody wants to give them up. So it's hard to make those moves not in the offseason. But Oweh was a player that we saw the flashes of potential, but he could just never put it together over a full season. And I know he had the 10.5 sacks or double-digit sack season last year, but even then it was like, 2.5 sacks would disappear for like 3 games and then would come back and have 2.5 sacks and then would disappear for a couple weeks. And so that was the inconsistency. And look, the Chargers do need pass rushers. Oweh slots in actually as the second highest pressure win rate among all Chargers edge rushers. So I think it was just time for a change of scenery. The Ravens clearly prioritizing defensive back help in their secondary. They're going to look to get some guys back healthy, hopefully. But, the way that it was going, you needed to make some level of a change. And the Ravens just kind of saying, because again, value-wise, I don't think this was great for the Ravens. Like, I think it was kind of just like former first rounder, you get a 5th rounder and a middling safety for Oweh and a 7th rounder. That's not like an Eric DeCosta fleece or something that, we've become accustomed to at points during his tenure, right? I mean, it's straight up to me. Like, I gave it on the live show we did, yesterday when we instantly reacted. I said it was a C move because I think trading Oweh opens up other opportunities for guys that can maybe take more advantage of them. But the value that you got for a guy that could maybe go to Los Angeles and maybe find a way. I mean, if he goes to Los Angeles Q and has like 10 sacks, everybody's going to be livid about, look at the system, look at what's going on. And so I think that's the worry for Ravens fans right now for Oweh, but it clearly wasn't working. And while I'm shocked that they traded him, at this point, I'm not shocked that he's not going to be a member of the team long-term because I was never anticipating that.
I don't really care what he does in LA. He didn't do anything here significant. So if he does do some things in LA, then sure, okay, the scheme fit him. But, Kamale Correa, or there's a couple of other guys that have gone away that played better away from Baltimore. So, okay, cool. You did it. Great. And now, with that said, I'm tired of the whole value thing. I'm tired of the accumulation of picks and all that. If you are trying to win, don't be so value, lower tier, picky. Get some studs. Use your picks better than what you have been doing. We still have a season now. Why worry about the future? And even when you look back and see what you did from an offensive line standpoint, from a D-line standpoint, what value did you do? Because Voorhees is plain inconsistent. You're looking at Fa'alele as Fa'alafinstock. Like, it is embarrassing. So, Rosengarten, I don't know why he's regressed, but boy, he and Daniel, like, if it seems like somebody's going to help one person out, the other person's going to help the other person out, no one helps out anyone. And it gets into this madness of inconsistency. So ultimately, I think this is like where, in my mind, big picture wise, they need to recognize we need studs. We don't need to just be like, oh, we got great value. You need studs. That's the bottom line.
It is. And I think that, the other thing is you can win a trade or a move short term, and it's okay if you lose that long term because you have a window right now with Lamar Jackson, right? That's exactly what it is. I mean, look, I'll bring the Nuggets into it. Yeah, shocker. I know I do it all the time, but the Nuggets, they're trading away all these. Look, you have the best player in the world, in my opinion, in Nikola Jokic, right? They're trading away all their future picks, trying to get flexibility, trying to get the right guys around him, trying to maximize the window with one of the best talents we've ever seen at the NBA level. That's what the Ravens should be doing with Lamar Jackson. I get that there's a way to handle the salary cap, and you need players on draft deals, rookie contracts to contribute because you're paying so many other guys a lot of high money value deals. But, at some point, I think you just have to take the big swing. And if you want to save this season, you're going to have to do it. Again, don't wait for it to get worse. Do it now, right? That's the word of the day. Now, make sure you do it, because you have a window. And even though you're starting slow, the season's looking bleak, there's still an opportunity. Plus, if you don't get it done this season, if you make some level of a comeback, but it doesn't work, if you trade for a Dexter Lawrence, you're probably trading for him with the idea that he's staying in Baltimore for a little while. So it's not a move that's just like a one-year rental. It doesn't have to be. You can trade for a guy and have them be a part of your team for the long term. And sure, you give up a first, you give up a second, give up multiple picks. That's okay to do. Eric DeCosta and this Ravens team, over the course of their history, so consistent with the winning. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they try to win every single deal, short-term and long-term. But I think at this point, with the way the season's gone, you might have to move away from that. But, you're asking a team to move away from their identity. Will they do it? I guess we're going to have to see. But coming up in the final part of the show, Q and I will talk a little bit about the additions, CJ Gardner-Johnson as well as Alohi Gilman, what they bring to the table and what it means for the Ravens defense, specifically Kyle Hamilton. Stay tuned. A lot coming your way on Locked On Ravens.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail rounding out this little midweek edition of the show. Nothing really happening on Tuesday, right? It's just a regular day in Baltimore now. It was a lot happening in Baltimore on Tuesday. We had so much content. I literally was like, finished recording instant reaction, got up for an hour, was trying to get my stuff out, had to sit down, do another instant reaction. We also had the morning show, just a lot going on. So we got you covered here on Locked On Ravens 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage and content. We'll actually have the squad show for you with Q and I, as well as Sam and Joku tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll be reacting even further to the latest Ravens news and notes as they get ready for the Rams in week 6. So hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form as well. Okay, let's talk a little about the additions here. We've talked a lot about the potential paths, who's gone, but the Ravens brought in some talent. CJ Gardner-Johnson coming into Baltimore. We can start with him. And, well, actually, we can just pair both guys. They're both safeties. They both play the same position. Both of them, I think, are going to have a major role in what Kyle Hamilton does. I think the Ravens want to move Kyle Hamilton back up to the line, back up into the box. They miss him there. He does so much. So the Ravens right now on defense, they can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They can't stop giving up points. They can't stop anybody getting first downs. They can't stop anybody on third down. They can't stop anybody on fourth down. They can't stop anybody in the red zone. I can go on and on and on and on. Hamilton does a lot of that stuff really well. So what I think CJ Gardner-Johnson and Alohi Gilman bring you here is the ability to let Kyle Hamilton move up. I think you can play Marlon on the outside if you want to, put Kyle Hamilton on the slot in some of these possessions as well. He does that well, play the big nickel. But they need somebody who can go out there and force turnovers. CJ Gardner-Johnson had 6 interceptions last year as a member of the Eagles. He helped lead them to a Super Bowl. Gilman is inconsistent in coverage, but is still, I think, an overall solid player. Not spectacular, but just a solid player. Although I will say the way Chargers fans are celebrating him leaving is Alejandro Villanueva-esque when the Ravens signed him, and Steelers fans were all up and down celebrating.
boy.
So I don't know about all that, but what do you think about the Ravens adding all this secondary and safety depth right now? Because they have a surplus of safeties, and I think that has to mean Kyle Hamilton's role is changing, and they're going to try to switch some things up on defense.
Well, the thing is that you're looking at what they primarily do, which is that big nickel. In other words, you have extra safeties in the game, and that kind of covers up a lot of what you like to do when it comes to matching up against opposing teams' offenses. Love it or like it or hate it or just despise it. It doesn't matter, positive or negative or neutral. The thing is that that's what they do. So bigger picture wise, injuries has derailed them. We obviously know our Darius Washington. It would have been entirely different because of him being in there. Obviously, he's not going to be because of the Achilles. Is this a sign that the Achilles is not really where it needs to be, and they're not going to be as patient as they need to be to get him back? From a bigger picture aspect of things, clearly Malaki Starks, Lowry, both guys just are good right now, but they're young. They don't have the experience. You saw a couple of times in the game where I forget which one it was, but you see a guy looking back. I think it was Lowry. Was like, "Hey, well, what's the coverage? What are we doing?" And now you're like pausing. That gives an advantage to the opposing team's offense. You see in run support where they're late coming up for run support. That's not good either. So there are little things there that they need to do better. So you're going to go out there and get some experienced guys. And that's what the Ravens did. And hopefully that experience will pay off. Again, Eddie Jackson, Freddie Jackson, we don't know. But we're about to find out.
Getting CJ Gardner-Johnson and Alohi Gilman in, they're just guys that have experience. And while they're not the best safeties in the world or anything, it's guys that have been there because we saw too many times guys lining up the wrong way, guys blowing assignments, guys not knowing where they're supposed to be, signals getting misconstrued between, the green dot or who's communicating in the players. They just need players who have been there and done that. CJ Gardner-Johnson's a Super Bowl champion. He brings a level of attitude as well to this team that I think they need. They need somebody with that edge. Jaire kind of showed that on Sunday with the whole Jalen Noel, Ray Lewis squirrel dance thing. But, there's a lot there's a lot of attitude stuff here that you can look at.
Okay, great. You showed, wow, stop him from scoring, and then we don't have to worry about the Ray Lewis dance. Stop him from scoring, everything will be fine, everything is good. You don't stop him from scoring, he gonna Ray Lewis dance. That's the bottom line. And dude got the ball anyway. So, as much as you were thinking that you did something, what'd you do? You ain't do nothing.
Yeah. Look, they need some level of an edge, and Jaire tried to do that with the whole touchdowns, Ray Lewis squirrel dance thing. But it's going to be interesting because I know in Houston it didn't work out. Apparently, he had trouble picking up the scheme, and he was responsible for a lot of big plays, or at least a very big play in Houston against Jacksonville. So I'm not saying it's going to work. I know people on social media are saying that he's either going to be the best safety we've ever seen in Baltimore, not named Ed Reed, or he's going to fight John Harbaugh in the first 3 weeks and be cut. So we're going to see how that all unfolds. But the Ravens, multiple big moves on Tuesday. We'll see how they end up approaching the coming days, coming weeks, and couple of months as the season continues to rock and roll. But Q, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on and joining me on the way out. Please tell people where they can find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, it's all about missile training. MissileTraining.com is all about your human movement and sports performance training. That's where you can find me. MissileTraining.com is where you can interact, get some understanding on how to be a durable, better moving athlete and human performer. So if you're in a sport as an individual, as a team, doesn't matter. I got your needs all met. Speed, agility, movement, all of it. We enhance it. We got some great protocols that we implement that will get you to fire your nervous system in a better way. MissileTraining.com. Of course, you can also see me on WJZ. We got Purple pregame every week. We're over at the Tailgoat, Jimmy's Famous Tailgoat, across the street from the stadium on home games. And, of course, we're in studio. Check us out on your CBS local affiliate. And, of course, Locked On Ravens. Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and I, every single week. We just break it all down for you. That's what we do. And at the same time, Sam Njoku, he said, you know what? We should do a squad show. So what do? Kevin and I, Sam, we do a squad show. You want to hook it up and hang out and understand what the Ravens are all about? Come join us even after games and breaking down the squad show.
Yeah, we got so much Ravens coverage and content for you here on Locked On Ravens. So many different forms. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form and audio form. And of course, all the links to Q's work in the description down below. I also want to end the show by sending my thoughts and prayers for the losses in the Ravens community recently. Captain Defense passing away yesterday, a tremendous loss for the fan base and for the city of Baltimore, as well as Arthur Jones, who passed away recently as well. So, of course, my thoughts and prayers out to their families, loved ones, and all that cared about them, as well as the Ravens community in general. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Again, hit the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form on the way out. And I will see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.